And I think by doing that, you're doing a disservice to your cause. I think by making it a black-white issue, you were doing a disservice to your cause. You would have so many more people joining you if you didn't do that, NFL players. And again, it's not about whether you can or not. The can side we addressed. It's up to the team. It's a gray area. It's whether you should, at this moment, before a game, bring politics into it. Because all you're going to do is take eyes off your product, leave negative impressions by some people regarding you and the league you wish to play in, and it brings down the pot of money for everyone. It's not the right time. It's not the right place. There is a time and place for the discussion, but this isn't it. And by the way, let's talk about the spin for a second here. About, first of all, the spin of the left to co-opt a movement where they weren't willing to run on an issue, such as police brutality against people of color. They weren't willing to outright come out on the issue. If you looked at the 2016 election, how many times did you hear Hillary Clinton talking about it? How many times did you hear Bernie Sanders talking about it? How many times did you hear the DNC talking about it? You didn't. It wasn't an issue that they knew they could win on, so therefore they didn't run on it. How often does the left take an issue and co-opt it like this? I remember going to protest about the brutality and death of Eric Garner here in the People's Republic of New York City. And I would see signs at this movement with websites on them for the People's Labor Party or for, some other communist fringe party. And I would say to myself, why are these people here for a police protest? What they're doing is trying to co-opt a movement. You're seeing mainstream politics try to take a passion and turn it and bend it to their own will in order to show that this is an issue they own. And if they own that issue, then they own your vote. The presidential election on the Democratic side did a half-assed job of this. They tried to make it their issue. They tried to get those to vote, but they tried to do it in such a way to keep the center happy as well. And they didn't do a good job of it because obviously Donald Trump won. Now let's talk about what Donald Trump is doing because it's absolutely sheer brilliance. Donald Trump has taken this issue and turned it into about patriotism, American pride, and the anthem itself. And done so successfully. What are people talking about with this? They're talking about Donald Trump saying that these players should be fired and that the anthem is sacred. And in doing so, we're not talking about the latest failure of getting Obamacare repealed. We're not talking about any other major issues that Trump has not delivered on. We're not talking about the merits of his tax reform policy. We're talking about how Trump is battling the culture again. How Trump is Trump versus media. Trump versus liberal culture. Trump versus NFL. Trump versus whoever you want it to be. But by the way, there's still no wall. There's still no Obamacare repeal. And the tax plan is currently out there and we haven't even talked about it yet. So how brilliant is Donald Trump in manipulating media? We talk about that with Robert Patillo later. We'll go into depth with it further. And you know what? Let's do that right after this break. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hear from so-called conservative Democrat, radio show host out of Atlanta, Georgia, and civil rights attorney Robert Patillo talking about this very issue with the NFL and the protest and the anthem. And we're going to do it right after this. Gene Baradelli behind enemy lines. We'll be back right after these brief words. If you're a long-time listener of the show, or maybe this is your first time listening, you can probably tell that me and the gang here, we like to have our share of fun, whether it's on or off the air. We talk about 2-drink minimum radio and no medication Wednesdays or whatever day it may be. That's why when we found the people at Less Government, More Fun, we knew it was a match made in heaven with this show. Folks, we live in a time where government is out of hand. Our founding fathers did not intend government to be all-consuming in all parts of our lives. That's why we are telling you to go to lessgovmorefun.com, check out the website, check out the swag. What the people want is less government, more fun. Pass it on, make it happen.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save.
Your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org, brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Behind Enemy Lines Radio is all about being right. No, seriously, it is. If you ever listen to Russ Gallo or me go back and forth on some issue, we always want to make sure that we remember who said what and when we said it. That's why we go to goonrecord.com. It's a brand new social media website. Challenge people on what they believe, whether it's in politics, sports, entertainment, finance, whatever. There's a category for you at goonrecord.com. Check it out right now. Tell us, what do you stand for? It's time for you to go on record. Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air. Gene Baradelli, back behind Enemy Lines. Joining me on the line, it's a pleasure to welcome to the show probably the first on this show. This is the first Democrat in the history of Behind Enemy Lines Radio coming on the show as a guest. He is a conservative Democrat, an attorney, and a talk show host in the Atlanta area. I'm talking to Robert Patillo. Robert, congratulations for making history, man. First Democrat on Behind Enemy Lines Radio.
Hey, thanks, Gene. I'm behind enemy lines, so it's great to be with you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So listen, full disclosure, we have a lot in common, actually. We're both attorneys, we both do talk shows, and we both have definite opinions upon this whole NFL boycott, national anthem, Colin Kaepernick situation. Let's get into the wonky legal part of this, because there's been a lot of questions about First Amendment rights versus, the rights of an employee to speak out while on the job and things like that. Where do you come in on this?
Well, it's not a First Amendment issue because we're not talking about government. The First Amendment protects your rights from the government being able to curtail your speech. Your employer can curtail your speech all you feel like. If we both walk into court tomorrow and start cursing up a storm, the judge has the right to hold us in contempt of court. Anybody who goes into their job and violates company policy on speech will be either disciplined or fired. So it's not a First Amendment issue that we're discussing because it's not governmental policy which is affecting their ability to speak out. I think the free speech part of it is the distraction from the bigger issue, which is what they're actually protesting in the first place.
Absolutely. And the question then becomes, what exactly are they protesting? I think with Colin Kaepernick, we know, because he's kind of said it in not so many words. But with regards to the rest of the league, are they protesting an issue or are they protesting President Trump?
Well, I think they're protesting an issue because, remember, this protest started before Trump was president. It started during the Obama administration. Kaepernick's initial protest was in response to President Obama, Loretta Lynch, and Eric Holder failing to address the issue of every week a video of a black guy getting shot being on television. So I don't think it's an anti-Trump protest. Now, what happened is you had the left-wing media attach onto it and turn into now it's their issue. You saw Hillary slither out last week, and now she's showing support for the issue, but they weren't showing the same support last year during the election cycle. So after, I think the movement's been going for 6 years to have, it's a very simple issue. Federal legislation to protect individuals from being shot by police unless it's absolutely necessary. It's a simple legislative issue, but because the Obama administration, the Democratic Party in general, I think there was a memo put out by Nancy Pelosi in 2015 telling candidates not to address the issue. So because of those failures, that escalated to the point of being an international level protest. They were just protesting in the NFL game in London again this week. So that's why it grew into the size of the issue that it is.
And once again, we have politics muddying the waters of what could be a clear issue. Now, listen, I may not necessarily agree that the federal government can enter in and try to regulate police powers. Obviously, federal civil rights issues, I believe they can regulate through legislation. I think it's a fine line. But at the same time, we have politics muddying the waters because I think that with every movement, it's getting co-opted by other people. Do you see that coming either from the left or from the right, trying to change what the message was originally being?
Oh, absolutely. Even I'll give you a perfect analogy. If you look at when the Tea Party started,
exactly what I was thinking.
A whole bunch of people who were really intense had a very specific issue, and then you had political action committees and the RNC come in and try to co-opt it and change their message and turn them into a political apparatus as opposed in a voter base as opposed to actually fighting for their issues. It's the same thing with this issue. These the people who are protesting, all they want is anybody, Republican, Democrat, Liberal, Conservative, Green Party, Martian, to come out and say we're introducing legislation and we're going to pass legislation to just tamp down the number. We know at some point that there's certain individuals that they're posing an actual threat to law enforcement. My older sister is a police officer for 30 years in the Charlotte area. So I respect and want to protect our police officers, but just some of the trigger-happy officers who their first response to anything is to shoot first. That is all they are asking for. And so when you turn it into a left-right issue, when you turn it into a liberal versus conservative issue, when we turn it into an anti-Trump issue, now we've gotten so far from the point that I think a lot of people who were protesting don't know what the original point was, and a lot of people who are mad at the protesters also don't know what the original point was.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people who are just joining recently into this issue are protesting in direct response to the president using strong language, using the term SOB in reference to NFL player protesters, and then trying to convert it into an issue as to whether the president is a racist. That's got to be, that to me is an explosive component that tamps down the debate that you just outlined.
Oh, and absolutely. And for all the people who are saying this now, the great thing about being in 2017 is we have the benefit of video. So roll back all these people from 2015, 2014, 2013, all the way back to 2011, and see what they were saying about the issue then, because the issue has remained the same. I think what President Trump has done, I call him the greatest media genius of our generation, because he absolutely knows how to read the media zeitgeist. You always see the media that, Trump is watching cable news all day. He's on the internet all day. What he's doing, monitoring public opinion, paying attention to what issues his base is talking about, what's trending, what they're tweeting about, and he knows how to push and prod them whenever there's something that he wants to keep us from paying attention to. The same way that the SOB comment came the week before the failure of Obamacare repeal. Remember when he tweeted out the transgender ban was the day before the failure of the skinny repeal. So whenever he has a big issue coming up, he tries to distract with a cultural issue, so his base won't revolt about, why is there no wall? Why is Obamacare still here? And why haven't we seen the reforms that you said you were going to bring? He can use these cultural issues to distract from those main facts.
It's actually quite brilliant, as you outline it right there. It's absolute genius, because it's almost, dare I say, it's almost a tactic of the left of deflection and misdirection. And to see it used by President Trump, he turned it from an issue of that I believe, and I agree with what you say, is a serious issue that can be dealt with through some legislation and through a change of culture in local police departments. But he turned it into an issue regarding the national anthem and patriotism and American pride. Truly was a brilliant stroke.
Yeah, this is why I say he's the media genius of our generation, because few people have that. It's almost like if you watch old kung fu movies, they would have the drunken master on the side of the road. So the heroes coming in, then there's like just a drunk guy who pretends to be crazy on the side of the road, and then he'll just jump up and be the grand kung fu master. That's the role that Trump likes to play. and that he's trying to pretend that he's off kilter and crazy, and the media eats it up like, oh my God, what's wrong with them? And the whole time he's playing them for fools. So what he does, he throws these issues out.